This is a very simple lesson, but I do want to go over something that I forgot to go over in the last section, and that's how do we come up with the graph of sine and cosine? Where does this come from? And it actually comes from the unit circle. So I got this nice little thing here. We've gone through the unit circle before, so you know we start here at 0. So if you picture the unit circle value, x is 1, y is 0. So when we look at on the start of our coordinate plane here, when x is 0, when theta is 0 basically, then sine is 0. So our output is 0. That's why we start right here with sine, we start at 0. And then what's plotted as we go through the radian values, pi over 6, pi over 4, pi over 3, pi over 2, as we go through that, we're just plotting the y coordinates of the unit circle, which is the sine of theta, right? And then after you go through the unit circle one time, it just keeps on going again and again and again and again, and that's why our graph keeps on going forever and ever and also goes backwards. Now notice something here. You can never have a sine value or cosine value greater than 1, because think of the unit circle. Its radius is 1, so the greatest we could ever get to is 1. So right here is actually this when our y value is 1. So that's the greatest it gets to is 1. And so that's called the amplitude, right? That's the highest it's going to go. From the midline, the highest it's going to go up to is 1. But that can change. How do we change that? Is by changing the number in front. So this is the graph of cosine, which starts at 1. We'll talk about that right now. But notice if I change a, that's going to raise it by that amount. Well, currently, let's put it at 1. That's like our general graph. I can't put it quite there. But that's the original graph. So if we basically put, a 5 in front of it, what's going to happen is we're taking that value of 1 and multiplying it by 5. So that's why our amplitude is greater. And you can see the greater it gets, the greater the amplitude. So our amplitude is equivalent to the absolute value of the number in front of sine or cosine, as you see in the next one. I do want to point out real quick before we continue on that the cosine graph starts at 1 and then it goes down. Think of the unit circle. Just like this, where we start at, cosine's 1, and then it goes down to 0. Then it goes to -1. So you can see it, 1 to 0 to -1, and completes at 2 pi right back up to 1. If you go through the unit circle all the way around, cosine, eventually the x value becomes 1. Take a little bit of time and think about that and connect that, and that's going to help out quite a bit. And you'll realize that it actually does an entire sine curve. It's really just a shifted sine graph because it goes through the exact same values. Both of them do by the time they get to the unit circle. They just start in a different spot. Sine starts with 0 because the y value is 0, and cosine would start with 1 right there. Remember, the coordinates is 1, 0. Okay, so really simple to come up with the amplitude. We're going to be looking at the number in front of the trig function. And so the amplitude, if you look, A is, we call it A, and then B is the number in front of X, C is that number, and then D there. So we're really focused on the number in front. So I'm going to say the absolute value of A equals the amplitude. So for this, the amplitude is 3. Look at the number in front of sine. It's 3. So that's how high it's going to go up to. It's going to go all the way up to 3. Instead of 1 like it normally does, it's going to go up to 3. This one would be 8. Look at the number in front of cosine. This one, absolute value -4 is 4. And here, absolute value, it's a -1 in front of it, right? So that one's going to be 1. And that's it.